What is going on, guys? It is MurderInc here, and today we are going to be talking about this game-changing epic champion. She is void, but she is epic, so keep that in mind. For the arena, this is going to completely change everything, all the way from bronze, if you have her, all the way to platinum. There's a lot to go over, and this is going to be, I'm going to show you how this works. Then I'm going to release a video after, going over some key points. Doesn't have to do with the exact strategy, but it has to do with how to properly build this no matter where you are. It's not as gear intensive as you would think. So obviously we're in a meta right now where you have a hegemon, you pretty much win. There are ways to counter it, as I've mentioned before, but still, hegemon is still a very strong champion. On top of that, if you go first, you win. Now, what if I told you this epic champion allows you to go second and always win? Now that's a development if I've ever seen one. We are talking about something as big as figuring out the 2-to-1 speed ratio for the clan boss. Something of that magnitude has been figured out, and obviously before we start, we're going to give credit where it's due. Infinite from My Clan Gods and Legends, really smart guy. To my knowledge, he came up with all of this in application on how to counter a full damage dealing hegemon, and Manable Gaming, as we all know, the arena specialist, has definitely made an awesome video on that. So if you haven't seen it and you're interested on how to counter a damage dealing hegemon, definitely check that out. You will not be disappointed. On top of that, I'd like to thank Zombie Lord, who played a crucial role with his speed calculator into helping me personally figure a few things out on how this can be used, not just with the hegemon, but with any team that is going to go first. Now, first thing I would say if I were you is, MurderInc, this sounds way too good to be true. And it's not as easy as I'm making it appear. If I am making it appear easy, you have to know a lot about the arena. It doesn't really mean you have to have a lot of champions, but you have to know a lot about the champions you're going to be facing. This is all going to come down to being able to read your opponent's team, swapping champions successfully, and using that to your advantage. Now, the one thing that's really cool is the speed requirement for this team is so small, it's going to blow your mind. As always, if you like this content, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bells if you want to see more of this, and let's get right into some of the footage I have of me using this in Platinum Arena. Now, that champion that I am talking about right now is in fact Cardinal. What she does is she revives all allies who are dead with a full turn meter. So if Cardinal is the champion to go next, it's impossible for anyone to cut in on this champion, making her so strong. Now, the key here, as we just saw with Trunda there, is she has to survive any type of damage that comes out. Now, this can seem almost impossible to a lot of you. However, using an immunity set, or if you're facing a Ceres, you can actually build resistance, which is going to be that next video I talked about, how strong resistance actually is when you compare it to accuracy, since you need much more accuracy to counter resistance. So there's a lot there, but the goal basically here is to make sure Cardinal survives the first wave of nukes, which is really easy to do with the speed. So she's currently running, if I remember, 191 or 192 speed. Now consider that in Platinum Arena. We are talking about Arbiters, Sifis, as well as Lissandras with 350 to 370 speed. That's what we're dealing with in the Platinum Arena. Not only that, people are running double turn meter boosts. So the fact that I'm doing any of this right now with the champion that has 191 speed is mind-blowing. It really is. There's no way to get around it. Now, there are ways to deal with Rotos, as we can see here. What you want to do is you want to use a green champion that's going to draw the threat from the Rotos. Now, you'll notice throughout the video that I have this built based off of Manable's video, where you need 191 speed pretty much. If all of your champions do die to a hegemon, it's going to go first no matter what. It doesn't matter if the other champion has 375 speed, so on and so forth. 191 speed's all you need to survive that. This was a lot harder when trying to apply it to the strategy that I am currently working on here today. So sometimes I threw in a Molly who had no gear on to boost that extra turn meter to compensate for I guess the error I made before releasing this. Now here's a perfect example of how this can actually counter a blender team. And one thing I'm not mentioning yet that even adds to it is Cardinal is the fastest champion on this team. So currently I have my Trunda here, and I'm going to show everyone's stats at the end. I'm pretty sure she has 120 speed, built full damage, so she can literally one-shot anyone as soon as she is revived. Now that's the key there. So this all goes back to the original point of make sure Cardinal survives, revives Trunda, revives any type of Ghostborn to apply that defense down. With the stats you can build on a champion when you're not looking at speed, you will be shocked at the gear that you have and what you can do when you don't have to worry about speed at all. On top of Ghostborn, you can also use a champion like Madame Ceres if you do feel like you have to strip some type of buff here. And I did test this out on, as you'll see from the clip and the footage in front of you, Ithos, Trunda, Folly, even double combinations of Trunda and Rhodos together. So this all works, and what you're seeing me apply and trying to figure out here is what champions can I pair together to make sure I do survive. So one key thing is knowing how passives work based on the amount of damage that's going to be coming at you. So as we can see, we will have this defense down debuff. Now what counters a defense down from a Madame Ceres? Seeker. Seeker applies that defense up upon being hit at the same time the damage is applied, which doesn't completely equal out, but gives you a good foothold in making sure that your Cardinal does survive. On top of that, we have a Mountain King here with the shield set. So these are kind of like platinum strategies. Once again, the speed is suboptimal for my Cardinal here. If I wanted to use a Cardinal like this in platinum, even though I am winning a decent amount of battles here, is to build her with about 230, 240 speed. That way she's literally always going to win. I fought so many battles where she was about 5 speed off from cutting off the next turn meter booster, speed booster, whoever was on the team, and that was the reason why I ended up losing in the match. So that definitely played a big role there, especially with a team like CV and Arbor on the same team. But as we're going to see, once again, perfect example of what actually happens here with this monstrous damage dealing Trunda. Had a huge shield on the Arbiter in this match. It literally didn't even matter. Trunda was built so well that she can pretty much take out anyone she wants. So that is the base strategy, as we can see, and I mentioned before, I'm going to be using a Molly here to kind of pad my turn meter boost. If you don't know, as mentioned in the previous video that I did, once Molly dies, she increases the turn meter of everyone, as we just saw there. Now, this is the perfect example. She's going to revive, turn meter boost again. Not that that's needed because everyone's going to go in sync here no matter what. And then Trunda is just going to completely clean everything up here. And you really love to see it. This can literally be done in any single arena rank bracket that you can think of. Whether you're in bronze and using someone like a War Maiden for a defense down, a Kale for your nuker, you do need a green champion if you are going to face against a Rhodos, that you can throw him in there, guide the threat to that champion, make sure that's the champion that cannot be revived so it's not messing up with your synergy. A really cool part about this is, as we can see here, besides your defense down and your damage dealing champions, you only really need 3 champions. So that gives you a flex spot to be able to adapt to any enemy in front of you, which makes this, once again, such an incredible team that you can copy. But now that we've pretty much gone over as much as we can, we are getting to the final rounds here. As we can see, this is my full survivability team to make sure that Trunda doesn't do damage, because you can never be too careful with the Trunda because she hits so hard. This one ended up not hitting as hard as I had anticipated. It is actually very important that your damage dealing champion does die. Now we can see we just used this. She did have a big shield there. I'm actually not using the shield breaker talent. Had I been using that, she definitely would have done a lot better. So as we can see, that was the last example I have for you. Really cool to watch. Awesome team. Now let's get into the stats and how you can apply this into your arena. Alright, so at first glance, people are going to say, how are you surviving platinum tier? Alright, so really quickly, just checking where I am in the arena. For when I did this testing, it looks like we are sitting at about Rank 68, so we're definitely not in the top tier. We're definitely still seeing some really good teams up here. So this is a really good example of where I tested this, where to get your feelers out for when you look at the gear that I have. Pretty much the point of me doing that is to make sure you guys aren't discouraged from the stats that I'm using, because I have to use them against the best players in the world in the arena. So if you're watching this, you're in gold, you're in silver, you don't have to come anywhere near the stats that I'm using to use this strategy 100% to your success, as long as you remember some of the key things that I went over in the footage that I showed you. The first champion and the highlight champion we're going to be talking about is Cardinal. These are the stats that I gave her: 57,000 health, 5,000 defense, 191 speed, as mentioned before. None of the other stats matter. So what this does is, this gave me the survivability to outlive double hits from Trundas with 5,000, 6,000 attack, 300% crit damage. So this is what it took for me to do that. Obviously, you're not going to be seeing teams like that in the lower ranks, so don't worry about trying to hit these stats. The only key thing to remember here also is the 191 speed. While it's suboptimal for what I was trying to do, I was able to find a few teams. Most of the teams that I did beat were probably 355 speed or lower to make this work, unless I got really lucky on some teams. Ideally, if you are in platinum, you're going to want your Cardinal to be at about 230, 240 speed to be able to counteract any type of decreased turn meter from the Sandra, any buffs you're applying if they have a Valk on their team, as well as double turn meter boosters such as Sifi and Arbiter together. Now let's get into the crown jewel of this team, which is in fact my Trunda. She is in a Savage set as well as a Cruel set, so we're looking at a lot of ignore defense. We have 6,700 attack, 263 crit damage, 139 speed, insanely low speed, which works really well with Cardinal since she's reviving, boosting the champion to the max turn meter of the entire match, making sure she always goes next. So the reason why these stats are so ridiculous and why you can stack full damage is because you need to make sure you are killing your enemy. If you have a champion that's relying on accuracy to place that defense down and weaken, if they're running a resistance team, it may not land. So making the champion do as much damage as possible increases your chances of completely one-shotting their team. Now, one thing there is to mention that I didn't mention before are the masteries. What type of masteries should you be looking at? As you can see here, I did elect to go with Flawless Execution since I have so much built-in ignore defense that isn't on an RNG chance on the champion with the Savage and Cruel set. One major thing you want to take on all the other champions is Selfless Defender. This decreases the damage an ally receives from the first hit. In each round, this champion will receive that damage instead. So what you want is you want to make sure these champions are dying as quick as possible, boosting the turn meter of the Cardinal. Now, after mentioning that, I do realize that I didn't go over Cardinal's masteries. Thankfully, I picked that up, so let's get right into what I chose for her. As we can see here, the key is Timely Intervention as well as Spirit Haste. When the champions die, this increases her speed, giving you that edge and making sure her turn comes up faster so you don't have to mitigate too much damage. The other thing, as you can imagine, Cycle of Revenge, also great for boosting the turn meter, and as many defensive masteries as you can possibly take to increase your success chance on making sure that you survive as far into it as you possibly can. Outside of that, I did mention that I used Ghostborn before. Ghostborn requires no accuracy, which is why she's good. The only thing you really have to speed tune is, while speed doesn't matter on anyone besides Cardinal, you do want to make sure any type of debuffer, like a Ghostborn, is in fact going before your damage dealer. And if you want to take a look at another prime example, something that I actually haven't capitalized on is someone like a Madame Ceres. Now, what I'm going to get into in my next video is the relationship between accuracy and resistance, why resistance is heavily favored by how much and what you want to build. As we can see here, I have 681 accuracy. This is one part of my Great Hall I haven't completely maxed out as far as void accuracy goes. However, what I can do now, since I've been so focused on making sure she has enough speed, enough health, and all of that, now I can focus strictly on accuracy, possibly even boosting this champion over 750, closer to 800 accuracy to really make sure the chances of resisting my Madame Ceres in particular is very, very small. So these are some things that you can do regardless of where you are in the arena. Now, one thing you can do that I haven't tried, I've been thinking about it actually while I've been recording this video, is you can actually use a second revive champion. Someone like Raglan, who has incredible use pretty much everywhere. She's extremely tanky. She revives in ally singular with a full turn meter. So you can use someone like this in that fourth flex spot for the arena, since you need Cardinal, a damage dealer, and a debuffer if you so choose. Now you can place in Raglan just in case the AI of the enemy team in fact targets your Cardinal first. Cardinal dies, what are you going to do? Raglan is the champion that can actually save your entire team by instantly reviving that champion as soon as Raglan goes and allowing a chain revive effect to actually happen. On top of that, she has the really cool A1 that does increase the turn meter by 15%, which is awesome, as well as a heal that you probably won't be needing unless you need to save Cardinal once again, but also consider it's at the expense of healing the entire team. Alright guys, that's it for my video today. Hopefully you were as excited to learn about this as I was, and I'm really glad I got to share this with you guys. I think this is really going to shake things up. I know everyone's been complaining about this speed meta, and the last time I did a go second team was actually before Torment came out, where I used a Razin leader, 2 skull crowns, and lifesteal gear with heavy resistance to make sure they were constantly counterattacking and healing back up, as well as a Brachus. It was just awesome to run that team. It was one-shotting everyone. They were basically killing themselves. So now we're returning to that using an epic instead, which I think is absolutely awesome. I'm going to do my best to get that accuracy and resistance video out for you guys as soon as possible. I'm also going to rebuild a few of my champions that I described here today, including Cardinal, so you can see what it's actually like if you stack a ton of resistance on a champion and you don't have to worry about an immunity set. While resistance isn't as ideal, if you're early game, resistance is probably the way to go, just because of how big the difference is between benefit of accuracy compared to benefit of resistance. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all in that next video.